Welcome to the Open RAN Summit here in Mobile World Congress, Las Vegas. My name is Henry Calvert. I'm Head of Networks at the GSMA, and I'll be your MC and host for this afternoon. If we just take a quick look at the agenda. There we go. We're splitting this sort of discussion into 3 sessions. The first session is going to talk about Open RAN momentum. The second session is going to talk about the maturity of Open RAN adoption. And session 3 is going to be talking about how we accelerate Open RAN's adoption in the industry. In our first session, we'd like to open this up with an introductory presentation from Luc Ibbotson, who is the head of Group R&D at Vodafone in the UK. Luc.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here. Apologies in advance if my voice gives out halfway through because it wasn't because I was out too late last night, I promise. It's because I picked up something on one of the many planes I've been on recently. So just bear with me if it starts to fade in and out. Hopefully we'll make it through. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time framing why we think Open RAN is so important and really looking at some of the progress that I think the ecosystem has made over the past few years and what Vodafone's plans are going forwards. The fact that you're all here means that you know what this is about. No longer are we just going to be receiving our base station and our radio products pre-integrated with a nice bow tied up from our incumbent suppliers. What we want to see as part of our drive towards having greater diversity in our supply chain is an Open RAN system that allows us to benefit from rapid innovation, reduce our total cost of ownership. So we estimate that just on the radio hardware alone, we should be saving around 30% in terms of that. And last but not least, we want to provide a platform that allows us to introduce rapid innovation. So we want to create a climate and an environment that allows people who are bringing, for example, new capabilities on the radio controller, such as the work we've done with Cahir, adding spectral efficiency to the systems. We want that to be something that is very, very easy to digest and to play with. And we also see this as an opportunity and a requirement, I would say, to collaborate on an unprecedented scale. The only way we're going to be able to make this work is if we, as an ecosystem, actually work together in a very transparent way so that the collection of brave pioneers that you see on the right-hand side are able to effectively pool their resources in a way that allows us to really move the needle, which we are doing. So if you look at the progress that's been made over the past couple of years, this chart is just showing you a snapshot of where we see deployments of pilots, plans that have been announced to go commercial. If we just look at what we're doing in this little green island up there at the top, which is the UK, we're using that as a testing ground for Open RAN maturity. We're using it to understand how close we are to the KPIs that allow us to maintain customer experience. But more fundamentally, we're also using it as a way to help boost the ecosystem, because we recognize that without having people with the confidence to invest and people who believe that this is actually going to be a sustainable business opportunity, we need to make sure that the foundations are right from an ecosystem perspective. And if you compared this, if I did a similar chart maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it would be almost empty. So I think the progress that's been made just in the past couple of years is truly remarkable. And I'm very, very grateful to all of the names that you see up on that chart. And if we just dive into that a little bit more, you can see what a fantastic ecosystem we've already got. Again, this would have been a very, very depressingly empty chart, even going back a couple of years. And it's fantastic to see that we now have so many people across so many different categories ready to invest and ready to collaborate and to interact in a way that allows this to work. One piece I wanted to draw particular attention to is also this bottom line, because as we start to, and I will talk about some of the obvious challenges with this in a couple of charts' time, but if you look at the extent to which we're going to be bringing on new software releases from a large number of players, having to continuously test and integrate and deploy that code, we need a ruthless level of automation. We need automation on the testing, and we need automation on the lifecycle management. So just to say, also very grateful to all the companies named at the bottom here, because without the ability to have the tooling to automate this, there's no way we'll be able to make it work. So I think Open RAN arrives at a very, very interesting time, because going back a few years, I don't think we would have had the ability to operate this type of infrastructure in the way that we're now very confident we will be able to. The other thing I'll call out from this chart is, obviously, if you look at all of the different combinations and permutations of these suppliers, it'd be like drinking from a fire hose. We wouldn't be able to digest and to operate it. So what we're looking to do at the moment is to package up suppliers and technology providers into parcels, if you like, that allows us to limit the number of permutations, but without sacrificing the benefits of agility and flexibility. If we talk about maturity for a moment, this is another area where I think we've made some fantastic progress over the past couple of years. If we look here on the radio unit side, and we look at this is just a snapshot from our very extensive internal benchmarking that we do across the whole industry of technology partners. The radio product is already starting to surpass the performance of the traditional RAN provider. So I think this is, again, is a fantastic testament to one of the reasons why we're doing this, simply because we can select best in breed. If there's somebody with a fantastic radio head product, we want to be able to use that. And that's what this chart is showing. There is still a gap, and there has been a gap on the software side. This is mostly due to the availability or the lack of availability of 2G software. 2G is still an important capability for us as an organization, because we have a lot of IoT devices still running on this. And we've had to work quite hard with the Open RAN community to make sure that the 2G software is addressed. Glad to say that they were almost there now. I think it will be good enough by the end of this year, and so we should see these benchmarks start to move up and give us parity. The other thing I wanted to call out on the right-hand side is that whilst it's true that we've started with, if you like, the simpler challenges of providing coverage to less busy areas with a minimum feature set, we're gaining rapid confidence through the testing that we're doing that we will be able to start to increase the richness of the features offered, support multiple technologies. You see here 2G, 4G, 5G, initially without dynamic spectrum sharing, but in the not too distant future, introducing dynamic spectrum sharing, introducing massive MIMO. So we've actually got a lot of confidence in the roadmap that you see on this screen. It's not plucked out of the air. It's based on a rapidly developing understanding of where we need to be addressing the pain points as we go through this. So a great deal to be cheerful about from this perspective. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is again, there are so many reasons why we're doing this. One of them is cost. And if you look at the fairly significant cost contribution that's made by the chipset on the radio side, and then you look at how that's at the moment is operated as an ecosystem, you can see that unless we start to take a different approach, it would be very, very difficult to drive the silicon merchant providers in a way that allows our requirements in terms of Open RAN to be available in the right way. So what we're calling on here, this is the first of a couple of call to arms for all of the operators in this room, and certainly for some of the technology providers as well. This vision that I put up here, and there's a reason, by the way, that we've recently announced a brand new research and development lab in Malaga. It will be looking very much at this space and defining our chipset requirements. We need to be forming a coalition of companies able to drive this ecosystem in the right way. If you don't get that right and you can't drive the ecosystem in the right way, we will never be able to truly get the same scale and impact as the companies that are today doing this. So very, very keen to support this way of operating. Final chart is a little bit of an eye test, and it's I guess it's an opportunity to do a couple of things. One is to recognize that in picking this well-integrated, well-honed, well-optimized product apart, there are a fresh set of challenges and things that we need to solve in terms of how the equipment is delivered to us, how it's tested, how it's integrated, and how it's run. So we published in, I think it was earlier this year, this system integration white paper. Again, one of the things that we're learning is we have to share a great deal. There is very little benefit to the small companies who are taking some well-calculated investment risks in developing products for this market if every single operator in the room then insists on doing exactly the same set of tests with every single operator. So we want to make sure that we simplify the way that the products are tested, the way that they're integrated. So we want to have that integration move towards more of a distributed, collaborative network of test labs where people can test and pre-integrate the product to the scale necessary. What we've done in this paper is set out a blueprint for how we think it could be done. That's not to say that we would accept everybody or expect everybody to follow exactly the same guidelines, but we think something like this is required by the industry, or we're not going to be able to provide the scale to allow the companies that are working with us in this space to actually survive. So the other parts, just to very quickly mention, there are some obvious wins here in terms of factory pre-staging, stopping the movement of goods backwards and forwards between different distribution hubs. And the final point that I will land on, because I think it's a good setup for some of the conversation we're going to have in the panel, is how on earth do we run this on a continuous basis? Given that it requires all of the mobile operators who are investing in this space to become their own SI to some extent or other in terms of managing the end-to-end life cycle. So I will leave it there before my voice gives out completely, but I'll be joining the panel in a moment, and hopefully we'll get into some of this debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luke. And as you can see from a global leadership position, Vodafone is driving Open RAN through certainly all its companies that it actually has. We're going to turn a little bit to focus on the markets probably most mature in Open RAN, that being Japan. And for that, we've got a presentation from NTT Docomo and also Rakuten in a minute. From NTT Docomo, we've got Saduki Abeta, who is the head of Open RAN in Docomo. Now, unfortunately, Abeta-san was taken ill with COVID on, I want to say Friday, but it wasn't. What day are we? 2 days ago. And has not been able to travel. He's been restricted from travel. But he has very kindly produced a video to take us through his slides as well. So we are going to present that video now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Saduki Abeta, head of Open RAN in NTT Docomo. First of all, thank you very much, GSMA, to give me an opportunity to talk about Open RAN. And I'm sorry I can't join this summit in person. I'd like to explain that where is Open RAN making impact based on our experience. So I briefly introduce our 5G status first. So this value is at the end of last March. And we have already 10 million, more than 10 million 5G subscribers. And it's already exceeded 50 million. So many 5G users already enjoyed our Open RAN. And our 5G coverage is more than 20,000. And this is fully multi-vendor interoperable Open RAN with open interface. So even in the same geographic area, we can use different vendors' equipment. And it works well. We support ENDC, we support carrier aggregation. So many functionality already is supported through that our Open RAN. And we also support 3 frequency band newly allocated for 5G, 3.7, 4.5, and 28 GHz. And also we started to use that existing band, which are allocated for 4G. In parallel to the evolution of the networks, we are working with vertical partners. So we call the 5G Open Partner Program. The program, we are creating a new service and solutions with partners. So partner propose their solutions, or we are proposing the scheme and work to create the partner solutions. And the program itself, we have the 5,300 partners now. So in these partners, we have the many different areas. So 20% is the service industry, 70% is wholesale retail. And also we have the local government, finance, insurance, education, construction company, medical. So many different vertical players working with to create 5G service. So we can imagine so many different service, so many different deployment scenario we will have in 5G era. So, and we need to provide the best solutions according to that service or deployment scenario. So, Open RAN is one of the key technology. So I think that most of our audience already know what is the benefit of Open RAN. But as I mentioned, there's so many different use cases we will have, and we'd like to choose the best solutions for each deployment scenario. Of course, we can use the same deployment, same scheme for the different deployment scenario. We want to use the best one. And this Open RAN, as you know, we can adopt the best of breed solution. That means that we can avoid vendor lock-in, and we can mitigate the supply chain risk. As you know, the recent semiconductor shortage, so vendor have to provide the equipment, but we can use the other vendors' equipment, and we can expect the TCO reduction by control cost competitiveness and leveraging cost server. And also that, as mentioned, we can use the solution in the world because that is open solutions, and working ways that the different vendors or different vertical players, we can have the more open innovation. However, there are through challenges most operators have, or it's just reported from the survey of the open adoption. But the challenge there is one is the system integration. Since most of operators do not have experience to do that system integration or interoperability test by themselves, and technology seems that it's new. Open RAN is not widely deployed in the world yet. Of course, we deployed that Open RAN already, so we think it's mature, but that not widely spread yet. And TCO, of course, that as mentioned, there is a merit to introduce Open RAN, but maybe some additional cost is needed, but it's not so clear. And multi-vendor operation, it's most of cases new. So operation impact is uncertain part and looks complex. So to solve or to mitigate these challenges, we created the Open RAN ecosystem working with the partners, including that the hardware, software, platform, and accelerators. So this Open RAN ecosystem not only focus on that the VLAN performances, but also we create that the pre-integration solutions. So for the operators, they can choose a pre-integration solution. They don't need to do that integration by themselves. And life cycle management, if that vendor has a different one, it must be complicated. So we work with the partner to simplify the life cycle management. So to align the life cycle as single vendor solutions. And to realize this, one also approaches our open share lab. So this share lab, we can provide that the interoperability test, because that the remote head frequency band is different from the country. So we need to do that. Interoperability test for the different areas. And but we also need to see that end-to-end performances. So I would like to explain that this shared open lab. So this shared open lab itself is located in Japan, but the operator can access this lab remotely from the overseas. So from here, or from your office, you can access to our lab and test and see the result. So we have multiple rooms as shown here. Here you see that the server or seed room, seed box. So in the seed box, we have the different RU, so different frequency band, different transmission power. So you can put on that your own remote head, and you can do the test. So everything change remotely, so you don't need to come to Japan. And also you can select it that your preference, your preferred hardware, or your preferred platform, where you preferred accelerator or software. So you can shorten that time and reduce the cost for the POC or test for integration for the ORAN. So in current status, we provide 3 configurations to do that VLAN test. So as you see that the multiple combinations and the multiple players in each layer we have, and we can see that the VLAN performances, including that end-to-end test. And in this environment, we not only provide that simple test, but also that very complicated, like loaded test we provide. And yesterday, we also add new combinations using that Qualcomm X100 and Hewlett-Packard servers together with NEC and Red Hat. So adding that these new frameworks, we can provide more flexible open RAM. So the partner operator can choose their preferences and to see that what information they want. So our shared lab is continuously improving and also providing that latest performances, and also the updating that equipment based on that chipset upgrade or accelerator upgrade, software upgrade, and virtualization or Kubernetes update. So you can see that the best solutions, and sharing that this result or test bed itself among the operators, we operate significantly reduce the time and cost. And we can, extend the open RAM world in the world, and also this can reduce the cost of the open RAM. And we can support that different deployment scenario which we will have in the 5G era. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abeta-san. As we can see, NTT Docomo's very progressive transformation over time through Open RAN, and particular into the ORAN specification. Next, we're going to hear from the challenger, an innovator within Japan, and also in a global presence now. So let me welcome Sushil Rawat, the VP of RAN Production Platform for Rakuten Mobile.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a good time in this session of Mobile World Congress in Vegas. And I promise you're going to have good time in the panel too. We heard other panelists today talking about the timing and how the industry and ecosystem has grown in past few years. I'm also going to talk about timing. For us, time has been very critical in terms of how this technology has evolved and how it is coming together. I'll just give you a quick timeline of how our network built out in Japan looked like. We first was awarded our spectrum back in April of 2018. Exactly a year from then, in February of 2019, we put our first production site in network. It took us 1 year because be aware that at that time, Open RAN technology and standards was still evolving. And we had to face a lot of challenges, which we celebrated because we saw a lot of problem how to build that network and build this architecture at that time. Exactly a year from first network site rollout, we launched our network in April 2020. And 2 years from there, today, we have celebrated a production network deployment of 50,000 4G sites and 15,000 5G sites, which is the largest O-RAN deployment in the global market today. So this scale at this timing was only possible because we adopted a complete end-to-end virtualized and cloud-native technology architecture, which is based on O-RAN. While we are just having a lot of panels and discussion about O-RAN ecosystem and the growth, we at the same time has been investing our destiny as a company and as a technology innovator into Open RAN. We have successfully deployed 50,000 sites, and not just 50,000 macro sites, but 270,000 cells, which is macro sites, small cells, and femto cells. That is, we celebrate another milestone that, we have further enhanced capability of Open RAN, not just from macro side, but this is split architecture and disaggregation has gone into all areas of network deployment. This whole network deployment was based on 4 critical pillars. We have disaggregated when standardization was still coming along. We disaggregated hardware, software, not just on the radio side, but also on the baseband and core. We have unified our hardware. We use all the core network on x86 platform. We have minimized our hardware SKUs. We simplified our supply chain. All the network elements are virtualized and cloud native. So that's the most important, those 2 most important pillars of our network deployment. Industrial automation was something that was necessary, not good to have, but necessary to build a large-scale network like this in just 3 years. Right? So we have done massive automation all the way from planning stage to operation stage, which help us deploy network at this scale. While other panelists was also mentioning about how automation is important. For us, automation is not important, it is critical. Nothing in our network we do or we promote which cannot be done automatically. Our vision, our leadership vision in the organization is to have complete autonomous network where human intervention is close to 0. We are not there yet, but we are working very hard to achieve that goal, but we are still, I would say, most part of our network has been automated in a way that our operating headcount for network operation is 1/10 of most of the network at this size. And very important aspect of such network deployment is organization. So organizations today has been built for most of the brownfield operators, has been built to accommodate generations of technology. However, to adopt a disruptive technology like this, we need slight change in the organization which can adopt such kind of changes. So we have adopted a platform-based organization which allow us to introduce technologies more frequently and which allow us to catch up with the expectation that customer have that the network can grow, on daily basis. So those are the 4 important aspects that we have discovered and now implemented to reach a scale of our Open RAN network that we have. we have not only done work on that side of technology innovation, we have also invested, not only invited vendors to come and demonstrate capabilities, we have invested and enabled our partners to build radios for us so that we can diversify our supply chain. So we have products coming in from companies like Nokia, KMW, and Airspans and Sercoms, and because of our co-investment and our motivation to bring those vendors together, we have reached price points with our suppliers because we invest in them. We have achieved price points which are disruptive, and that effectively result into lower operating cost, which we are able to now transfer to our customers. So our data rates in Japan are one of the lowest, and we are able to do that because of our overall operating cost is lower. This is about our industrial automation. As I said, automation is not good to have in our philosophy of network. For us, it is a critical aspect of network build out, so we have made sure that we have automation all the way from planning stage to operations, which basically allow us to operate this network at 1/10 of a human capital requirement from other networks. So those are the few critical points and milestones that I wanted to share today, and I'm sure we're going to have a good panel discussion after this. Thank you so much.
Okay, a little bit more around, first of all, thank you very much for those presentations. They're pretty in-depth of what your businesses are actually providing. And from an operator point of view, Luke first, for Vodafone, who's a brownfield operator, what are the predominant use cases that you feel Open RAN is going to provide a success for you?
So I think one of the things, I mentioned a few things during the presentation there, but I think one of the things that can't be overstated is the importance of how we can quickly bring commercial innovation on top of an Open RAN network in a way that goes beyond we can support with a more traditional RAN infrastructure ecosystem. So if we look at the capabilities of the RIC, the radio controller, and the extent to which this ecosystem will now allow us to tailor brand new service offerings for industry verticals, for certain customer types, or just to improve the efficiency of our network. We can try these things out. We can see if they work. If they work, we can adopt them rapidly. If they don't work, we can fast fail and move on. Trying to do that in a traditional RAN ecosystem where you've got a completely vertically integrated product from a couple of very, very large, great technology providers like the Ericssons and Nokias of this world. They are good, just to say that. No. But trying to bring something new into that world, quickly test it, see if it works or not, and adopt it or not, that's impossible. So I think there's a plethora of use cases that I believe that Open RAN will allow us to do, but that one for me is one of the biggies because actually it allows us to start to see a way to actually getting a really good return on 5G and unleashing some of its promise.
Thank you, Lou. And Sushi, if I can call you Sushi or Sushil.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You've explained really well that Rakuten has led the way in the innovation for Open RAN and the operational benefits that you've actually got. If we look a little bit wider to Japan and the environment of Japan, how do you think that Japanese environment has helped you being that challenger competitor coming into the market? How has that happened?
Few reasons, right? One of the most important reason is how regulation and policy in Japan allow operators to collaborate and share infrastructure. Also, government policy in Japan does promote innovation over commercial benefit. So in Japan, spectrum is allocated based on how much you're going to invest into the network build out and how the customers are going to get benefited. That's one strong motivator for operators to innovate and transfer those benefits toward customers. So you commit to the government how you're going to pass this benefit by this allocation of spectrum. And the second aspect is geography and environment in Japan is very dense. It has hundreds of thousands of kilometers of metro train where millions of people travel every day. So connectivity is very, very important, and customer is very particular about performance. If there are degradation in performance, you'll see a lot of Twitter messages going on about that.
I just want to pick up on the performance sort of side, because you're operating a network now that it has a sizable subscriber base on a number of many cell sites, the largest you were actually saying. How would you compare your network in Japan? Are you competitive on a performance basis, a customer experience basis?
From our perspective, we maintain industry standard KPI benchmark from an operator perspective, but we have invited, and a lot of third-party independent benchmarking companies has come and evaluated us against other 3 MNOs in Japan, which are massive in terms of their spectrum holding and their subscriber base. We have like 5.5 million customer on air in production network with 50,000 sites. Our performance is at par with existing vendor who hold more than 100 megahertz of spectrum in mid-band and low band. So O-RAN as a performance, we have no doubt about capability and performance of O-RAN. It is performing as well as any other traditional vendors are. And repeating to your point, they are very good. Right? So O-RAN is no less in terms of performance with traditional technology.
But I would echo that as well. I mean, the trial that or the pilot, I should say, that I referred to in the UK, we call it the Golden Cluster. We've got 16 sites there. We're using that to validate the KPIs as we start to increase the complexity and the capability of that cluster. This isn't a science experiment for us. This is something that is preparing the way towards mass deployment at scale. So that's very much what we're aiming to do. And it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that Rakuten is getting such a good experience, because whilst this is still a nascent technology to some degree, the speed with which it's maturing and the capability that we're starting to see being demonstrated by the products is truly remarkable. So I think it's in good shape.
And Luke, what's sort of you produced a nice roadmap up there, which I think is very sensible. I think everyone's expecting Open RAN to have, even 64 by 64 MIMO capability, carrier aggregation, discontinuous reception, discontinuous transmission, the whole list of features out there. And you had a nice roadmap of that. What's your ask of the vendors? What's the focus of not only just vendors, but the systems integrators as well? What's kind of the key focus ask you would like the vendors to actually hear from you?
I think, well, first of all, just like step back from that. I will come back to that in a second. But I think one of the reasons why we've been embarking on these trials isn't just to test the technology. It is very much to understand what support we need to be giving as operators to this new ecosystem. So understanding what type of role we would want the system integrators to take on, which parts we need to upskill and take on. So whilst validating the performance KPIs of the infrastructure is obviously critical, because we want the performance of this thing to be at least as good, if not better, than the solutions that we have today. A big part of it has been around understanding how we need to operate in this new world, what we need to be doing as operators. You had 2 calls to arms in the presentation. One was around working with technology providers and mobile network operators to see how we can collectively drive some of the chipset development that we need that sits at the heart of the radio products in a way that allows Open RAN ecosystem to be, properly, fully competitive with a more traditional way of doing it. And the second one was around this model of how do we actually run and deploy these networks and maintain them when we have such a, I guess, it's a more complex ecosystem to work with, because we have a much larger number of suppliers, we have different software release cycles, we have no longer the benefits of having a nicely shrink-wrapped product that just arrives all pre-integrated. So this has been part of our learning as well, and it's a reason why we published the system integration paper we did, simply to get feedback from the community, and hopefully some resonance to say that if we all start to do this in a similar way, there are opportunities to collaborate that could really light a fire under this in a good way.
Thank you, Luke. And lastly, Sushil, Rakuten's embodied partnership. Can you give us a little bit of a reflection on how you've partnered with the new technology players like Intel, for example? You know, how have you brought that partnership to bear? That must have been quite tough.
So partnership building is very critical right now. I mean, to be honest, we saw a large list of vendors across the slide, you know, in different areas, which is good to have. But unless these vendors and suppliers, a lot of them are very small companies, right? And they need to see real business, right? Companies can continue to innovate, but the important aspect for a company to survive is business. Our aspect of partnership is not just ask a vendor to come and demonstrate something what you have. Our philosophy has been slightly different. We always work with vendor as equal, and we make sure that we invest into the development that they're doing for us so that they become more sustainable. If the vendor community does not remain sustainable, the whole industry will not sustain. That's a very critical aspect of the partnership that we always embrace. We, all the way from chipset suppliers to radio vendors or any other product suppliers, we make sure that we are fair to them, we are making the right investment and motivating them to build a product that we want.
So taking the risk, but having a trustful partnership on the way through.
Yeah.
Everyone, I'd like you to thank Luke from Vodafone and Sushil from Rakuten. Thank you very much.